Hello, everybody. Mike Townsend and Tamara Splitter for American Cycling Network. We are glad you joined us. Hey, if you'll notice, I'm wearing my yellow jersey today. Jason and I are going for a ride immediately after. I got permission from Tamara, my coach. So I get to ride my third outside ride since my collarbone fiasco. But everybody knows Tamara. She is a licensed cycling coach with both the USA Cycling and the United Endurance Sports Coaching Academy. She's the boss. I tell you, she's coached various athletes to the national level. In addition, she is a strength and conditioning specialist as well as a triathlon coach, qualifying athletes to the World Championships. Tamara also is a lifetime competitive athlete. She is heavily involved in virtual cycling as a ride leader, a racer, and with the U.S. military esports. And as an athlete, Tamara lives for a challenge in both endurance and climbing, both IRL and virtual. And I'll go ahead and give you this now so I don't have to later. Check out our website. It's a pretty cool website, ignitesportsperformancecoaching.com. That's ignitesportsperformancecoaching.com. Today, we've got a great subject because it's something I've been guilty of. And here's the thing. I didn't know it. I didn't know I was guilty of it until I started working with Tamara. And today, the subject, I know you're hanging on the edge here, is overtraining syndrome. And I Googled this, and yes, it is a thing. I was like, wow, this is a thing. It's overtraining syndrome. It took me working with Tamara before I realized that in the past, before the crash, I'd been overtraining. And I didn't know what training was until I started working with you. So kudos to you, Tamara.
Yeah.
First question, what exactly is overtraining syndrome and how does it differ from general training fatigue? And how do you differentiate between an athlete being exhausted from training and truly overtrained?
I think it's important to kind of back up to what you were saying about how you didn't realize how you were overtraining. So we're talking about overtraining syndrome today, which is a very, very serious condition. So there's overreaching, right? Which is we sometimes call that overtraining, where where we take some rest and we recover and we're ready to go again. Um, Overtraining syndrome is what I call the point of no return. That's a complete hormonal shutdown. Some people never recover from it. Some people take months to recover from it. So it is quite a serious condition. Performance will decline, mood will shift. We'll find variables in heart rate, resting heart rate, performance heart rate. Zone two, zone three efforts will seem like uh, the greatest effort ever. And we see, yeah, a lot of hormonal changes in the body. It tends to start presenting itself with performance declining and a change in mood.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, how common is overtraining syndrome among endurance athletes or cyclists, and then especially amateur versus elite athletes?
It's more common than you think, to be honest with you. But with elite athletes, we don't really see it that much. And the reason being is that elite athletes have teams of coaches and nutritionists. And so elite athletes are but you got to be careful because they're always on the very edge of burnout. Right. And so, but they've always got people watching everything and pulling it back. So we don't see it as much. With amateur athletes, it's far more common. It's the do more mentality, push through, I don't want to be weak. I need to be strong. Um, I'm just having a bad day, push harder, push harder, push harder. And we all hear that. And I mean, I preach that too, right? So, there's pushing yourself through a workout is a lot different than pushing yourself through complete exhaustive fatigue that you're getting warning signs on, right? There's a difference that we have to be aware of.
Okay. And what are the most overlooked early signs of overtraining? And are there key psychological markers or data trends that you look for, that you monitor?
Well, I always look at data, but actually, it's athlete feedback that is the absolute most critical thing. So, data can't tell me, that an athlete is still fatigued after taking rest days. Data can't tell me that. Data will, show me heart rate variables and it'll show me performance. It'll show me all of those things, but I rely on the athlete telling me how they're feeling. So, if we're giving a deload week, which is part of the prescription, and time off and deload and, looking at a training cycle and they're not recovering from that and they're telling me like, I don't feel good. My muscles are aching. I'm not sleeping well. That's a key indicator too. That's a hormonal response. The sleep gets affected, the heart rate gets affected, the mood gets affected. They get very irritable. And then of course, the depression kind of sets in because they're not seeing the progress that they're shooting for.
Okay. Well, you must have me in a sweet spot because I've started sleeping normal 7 to 8 hours.
Mhm.
I noticed my HRV is as good as it's ever been.
Mhm.
You were correct when you said that my VO2 max would come back up. I'm
Mhm.
getting closer to where I was at before. Yeah, it's interesting. Now, how do you structure training to avoid pushing it into overtraining territory?
Oh, I mean, I watch things very, very closely. I give training blocks, periodization type blocks, where, I'm always building a deal, what I call them a deload week into the plan, depending on the athlete. That could be every 3 or 4 weeks, or we could go a little bit longer, but I'm constantly in contact with my clients, right? So the feedback is a non-negotiable for me. Like when they're filling in, and as you know, because I ask it from you, they're filling in after a workout or a ride or whatever it is, what was your rate of perceived exertion? And, how did that workout feel for you? So we're always in communication with stuff like that. Because the more feedback that I get, the easier it is for me to do my job. And so you start when you know an athlete, you're starting to watch for these patterns that are
Mhm.
going on. And I might say, you know what? I think we're going to take an extra day off today.
Yeah,
I want you to have an
interesting.
extra day off or whatever it may be. Like I could change things on the fly like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, when you give me a day off, it's almost like, whew, I needed it.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't ask, but it's like you're so intuitive about knowing when to say, I see the thing come through training peaks it says next day is off day. I'm like, whew, man, it's like you were, you know, literally inside me knowing what I was thinking.
Coaching, and you and I have talked about this before. It's not anybody can write a training plan. There's AI, there's different things on the internet. You can find a training plan. Anybody can do a training plan, but
Mhm.
coaching is about listening to feedback, looking at valuable data, but also listening to your client and seeing performance and key indicators of when rest needs to happen.
Talking about key indicators, do you rely on lab testing, wearable data like Garmin, or subjective athlete feedback um, to the most? And why do you do that?
I use all of it.
Use all of it. Okay.
But the number one thing, like I just said to you earlier, is the athlete feedback. That's the most
Okay.
critical. All the
Because I
data
was
is,
going to get a lactate ear test because I bet you put some a lot of lactate last weekend. A lot of lactate in my body last weekend. Uh,
yeah, all the data in the world, it's all great, but it's not telling me if my client is sleeping. It's not telling me, how much stress is in their life. It's not telling me if they're feeling recovered. Like if they're sleeping and they're getting up, if they're training and they're sleeping well, and I have to
yeah.
use that term loosely, right? Because the
Right.
data is coming in maybe 7, 8 hours a night, and they're
Yeah.
getting up in the morning and they're still feeling like incredibly fatigued and the muscles are never recovering.
Yeah.
No data is telling me that. They have to tell me that. So that's important. That's the
What
most important
do I
thing.
need to start sending you my sleep thing every day?
No, that comes up on all of your metrics on your training peaks. I get all
Oh,
that.
does it? You get it? Oh,
Yeah.
well, that is so cool. I didn't know you got that. That's pretty neat. Well, I can tell a big difference. I mean, there's sleep is so important. Maybe we need to do a show on sleep techniques. But
We could do that.
next question: what mental strategies do you coach athletes on during recovery periods when they can't train?
Oh, I think, for me, I remind them that recovery is actually prep. It's not saying you're weak. It's not saying that, you're failing. It's saying that this is prep. And I remind them because remember, I've done my fair share of coaching and competing, in bodybuilding, right? In that whole side of things. And, your muscles don't grow when you're lifting the weight. Your muscles grow
After,
when you
yeah,
rest.
yeah,
And it's the same thing with cycling. You only actually make the gains when you
yeah,
rest. You're not making them when you're training.
yeah. That's pretty neat. Yeah, that is so good.
That's for me, I'm reminding them of those things. I'm reminding them like it's all part of it. And when they actually start trusting that and they start seeing that after they take these deload weeks, after they take some rest, and I'm not saying it's complete rest. I don't believe in that. I think that, we need to keep healthy blood flowing through the body, but maybe they're training 5 or 6 days a week. I might say to them like this week we're going to do four. And we're going to do, zone 2 rides, or I just want you to go outside and enjoy a ride outside, or just do like if you're on your trainer, do an easy group ride on Zwift or something. This is a week for that. You have to remember it's not just the body, right? It's the mental part of it too.
Mhm,
Like we all have additional stressors in our life, whether, it's home or work or whatever it may be.
mhm.
And, when you're adding training stress into that, we need a break from that sometimes.
Yeah,
So I just
definitely.
remind that. Mhm.
That's good. Have you ever had an athlete suffer from overtraining syndrome? And then what common mistakes do you see athletes or even coaches make that lead to overtraining syndrome?
I personally have never had an athlete that has
Okay.
suffered from that because I watch it very closely. I have
Hmm.
had athletes come to me in overtraining syndrome, and they haven't liked what I've had to say because I have told them that we are just going to start off very slow and very easy, and we're going to monitor things, and there's a lot more rest, and they don't really like that. But they're coming to me for a reason, and that reason is because they're not performing
I
and
see.
because they're not recovering.
Okay.
So,
That's interesting.
yeah.
If you could give one piece of advice to coaches or athletes to avoid overtraining, what would it be?
Better isn't better. And if you don't have recovery built into a training plan,
Mhm.
you actually have a breakdown plan. You don't have a training plan.
Wow. That's interesting. Good information. Well, hey, I appreciate your time today, Tamara. Good stuff. If anybody has any questions, please put it in the comments. As always, like, share, and subscribe. But thank you so much, Tamara, for your time today.
Thanks, Mike.
All right. You have a good one.
You too.